Well, hey there everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are all having a fantastic day. I hope you're rocking out, most importantly of all. And today we're going to talk about 5 interesting facts about some Les Pauls. So Les Paul knowledge, history, whatever you want to call it. And if you're a Les Paul kind of guy, you might already know some of this stuff, you might know all the stuff. But I have ran into a fair share of people who are not aware of some of these just, Les Paul facts that are very unique to the instrument itself. So we're going to go and dive on into these. If you have some Les Paul facts that you want to throw in here, maybe I'll do a part 2. Leave those down below in the comments, or if I'm wrong, correct me. I want to have correct information. So other than that, let's go ahead and get to the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is, of course, the burst. Now, the Les Paul did not start as a burst, as many of you know it. I think that didn't happen until 58, 59, 60, the burst years. And then the Les Paul, unfortunately, went away for a while. At least the Les Paul that we know as being like this, went away for quite a while. And the burst, what some people don't know is that all bursts started as cherry. So we have all these different ones, the iced tea, the honey burst, the tobacco burst, all these different bursts nowadays, but they all started out as cherry bursts. Now, what happened is either playing in bars, gigging a lot, just exposed to sunlight. Maybe it sat in a case under a bed for years and it maintained its cherry. But the red faded to all these different versions. Like I said, we have honey burst, iced tea burst, tobacco burst. All these bursts started as cherry. And, even mine right here is a tobacco burst, but it's faded. You can actually see, if you take the pick guard off, you can see how much this has faded and just lightened up over the years of being played and exposed to the sun. So a lot of people don't know that all bursts started as cherries. So speaking of Les Pauls, Trogley just texted me with a picture of a guitar, of a Les Paul. So a lot of people might not be aware of what even brought on the Les Paul. Now, essentially, Les Paul himself had approached Gibson years before. This was before he was, as famous as he was with his hit songs and all that. And essentially, Gibson, listened to him, but they really didn't do anything with it. They just kind of wrote it off as, whatever. And then, of course, the Telecaster, which it wasn't called Telecaster, you had Esquires, Broadcaster, No Cast, Telecaster, I'm just going to call it a Tele, came out and was extremely popular. The reason why Les Paul wanted a solid body guitar was because he thought it would solve a lot of the feedback issues that you got from hollow and semi-hollow guitars. And, it wouldn't color the tone as much. He wanted just the pickups there on a solid body guitar versus being a semi-hollow. Because a semi-hollow definitely has a very, very distinct tone to it. So Les did his own version of the guitar called the Log. I'll put up a picture of it on here. So essentially, it was the Telecaster that really made Gibson realize that they needed an answer for this solid body guitar craze that was kind of taken over, which is why they brought Les Paul back into the mix. By this point, he was, extremely famous, had his own TV show, hit songs. Obviously he did his multi-track recording, which was revolutionary. Les had done a lot, and that's why Ted wanted to put his name on the guitar, help increase sales, and then they started working on the prototype of the Les Paul. Gold top time, baby, the original Les Paul. Of course, mine is not original. Again, like I said, I don't have any 50s. I wish. A guy can dream, can he? But there was actually a very select few amount of them back when they first came out that were all gold. So gold tops, gold backs, gold necks, everything was gold on them. I think they, of course, decided not to do that. I don't know if that was, something Les had asked for or not, but those are extremely rare. I believe Chicago Music Exchange has a video of one. They got one. And they're so cool looking. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about. What I thought was kind of interesting is the first gold tops, Les had originally asked for a mahogany body. Just all mahogany is what he wanted. And they were also working on the Les Paul Custom. And that one was supposed to have the mahogany body and the maple cap. Or they said he wanted it reversed is what I read. So maybe he wanted the original Les Paul maple and mahogany top? I don't know. But I thought that was really interesting. Gibson essentially told him no and came out with this one, and he wanted it gold because he said it was supposed to look luxurious. It was supposed to be this very fancy looking guitar, and 100% it is. It's I think a very classy looking guitar, and they knocked it out of the park. Now the Les Paul Custom back then, correct me if I'm wrong, was all mahogany. It did not have a maple cap. It wasn't until, like I said, around 58, whenever they started the Les Paul Standard, and they came out with the book match tops, because that was essentially Les Paul sales were really low. They came out with those fancy tops, and they needed to be way more careful. Like, who knows what maple is under here? It could be curly, it could be, you know, tiger, it could be fiddleback, whatever you want to call it, but I don't know what's under here. So they really didn't have to be careful with the maple caps back then, but until the 50s. So he came out with this one. Now, the Custom came out, the Les Paul Custom, and it was in black. And I believe Les said that, he had said it makes his hand stand out when he's on stage playing. So I thought that was like, that's such a guitar player thing. Like, make sure my hands are seen. So that was where that one kind of came in. And I believe he favored that one because it was all mahogany. I think that was maybe what he originally wanted out of the gold top. So I don't know, but I thought that was kind of interesting, you know. He basically asked for something and Gibson's like, nope, we're going to do it this way. So that was the first one. So one of the really interesting things I wanted to talk about that I found out that was totally new to me was kind of the whole revolution of the actual bridge on Les Pauls. Now we have, you know, Tune-O-Matic, ABR1s, all these bridges that we get, you know, we have so many choices, but when it came out, it was just that trap tail bridge. And what happened was, and Les Paul did not like it for a couple different reasons. What happened was the first Les Pauls that were made, there wasn't enough neck angle. So they had to, instead of wrapping the bridge over like they wanted, they had to under-wrap it. And that gave them a little bit more angle that they needed to get those strings off the frets. They were too flat on the fretboard. And essentially what happens, if you think about a bridge, if you wrapped under it, how do you palm mute? You can't, because if you think about how you palm mute the strings, that's because the strings are coming over the bridge. It always has to come over this bridge. If it was going under, you'd end up getting this sound. It wouldn't work. So they actually made a bunch of these. I think there were hundreds of them made like this. And Les Paul told him, he's like, you know, this is just not going to work. You can't do this. So then, of course, we came out with the stop tail piece. But that was the original ones, you know, those old, you know, trap style bridges. And I believe that was just basically like Gibson coming over from their hollow body stuff. That was already a similar style that they were using. And if you really look at the Les Paul is really just a combination of a bunch of like the Super 400s, like all these different guitars molded into one to make it into a solid body guitar. Another little interesting fact is why the Les Pauls have this carve to them. It is literally what I read. The reason why is because Ted McCarty knew that Fender did not have carving tools. They could not do a carved top. That's why they had to keep doing flat tops. Like, you know, not flat tops as an acoustic, but flat top like Tele's, Strats are a flat top. Even with the bevel, it's still a flat. So he knew they didn't have it. So this was already going to, you know, make them different because they already had the carved tops because, I mean, that's what semi-hollows were. So that was a big reason why I thought that was really interesting that he was like, you know, let's do it different than Fender. We could just do the straight flat tops like what Fender's doing, but let's add a carve because we know that they can't. At least they couldn't at the time. You know, they would need to buy the equipment to actually do a proper carve top. So I always loved the way just a Les Paul looks. That nice carve to it. It's just part of a Les Paul. And I thought I'd throw this last little thing in here because I do see it asked a bunch. Because my Les Paul is starting to green a little bit. Some of the areas where the paint has cracked and all that, it is starting to green. And a lot of people are like, why does it turn green? Well, I don't know about modern day. Like I said, mine's an 89, so it's not super old. But I don't know if they're using different paint nowadays. I don't know if a modern gold top will actually green the way that, you know, even one as old as mine will. So essentially that was just the copper that they're putting in the paint. It's mixed with the nitro, and as you kind of sweat, or if it's in like a very humid climate, or the actual top cracks and all that kind of stuff, once it gets in there, that copper oxidizes, and that's where the green came from. So it's kind of a funny little tidbit to throw in there, but that's really why it turns green. So like I said, I'm sure nowadays maybe modern ones don't green. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, I don't know. But if someone has a modern one that has green, I'd be really curious to know about that. So with that said, I'm going to take my own advice and I'm going to keep playing these bad boys. Whether you own one, whether you like, dislike Gibson, any of that stuff, hey, as long as you're playing guitar, we cool. So I'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of your day, and whoop!